growth episode. What is it? 40. We got platform. Actually, keep us posted on the. Oh, give me 1 second here. Yeah. Okay, it does not look like this is pulling from the right Wi-Fi network. There it comes. Okay, let's see. Let's see if this rocks. What's up, everybody? Sorry for some early technical difficulties there. Just refresh the stream if you get a chance. We're back, episode number 41, talking all about UpWork and freelance platforms and things like TopTal, and we'll mostly focus on UpWork. However, this could be applied to a number of different. This. Okay, what's up, Joe?
Okay. Joe.
Comments here. I'm not sure what's happening. It's not USB connection, so it's trying to do it on the Wi-Fi only, and it seems like that's creating a problem for because it seems to not be receiving.
People
don't know if it's enough to do the anti-lag warning that I used to. Okay. Not connecting to the dangerous here. I'm gonna edit. Lag. Yeah, apologize for the delays here and the technical freezing out on the screen. What can you catch but not in the stream? I have no idea why it's not recognizing this. Try this again. We do seem like we've got a little bit of a better connection here. It's getting me this slow. Let's give it a shot. Let's see if it comes back online here. What's up, everybody? Episode 41. We already did the intro. I see everyone is sharing some riddles. the riddles are going through the crowd. There we go. How Claudia? Oh, Penny, what's up? Floxy's community in the house. What can you catch but not throw? You're gonna have to share the answer to that one, Claudia, in the chat here. So it looks like we are back up and live. It may get a little hairy. It is giving me that it's too slow for quality, but I'm not getting the anti-lag warning. So it should still be connected and working okay. Let's give this a shot and see what happens today. So let's run through some announcements real quick before we get too far into any of the show content. Let's see. We wanted to give Penny a shout out. So Penny's out there in the audience hanging out. Penny is always super active with our community stuff as well as other groups, around the fringe of the no code space. And so she's always out there trying to help folks, active in Slack, etc. So we wanted to give her a proper shout out today as part of the show. Thanks for everything you do for us. There's a poll running right now in the YouTube chat. So if you haven't had a chance to answer that poll, we're asking, do you use Upwork or any other freelance platforms to find work as a freelancer? And so the answers are no, it's not for me. I'm considering it. Yes, I make some of my money, and yes, I make all of my money. So right now it's looking like 38% of you say, nope, it's not for you. 33% are considering it, and almost 30% make some of or all of your money on Upwork, which means you're probably interested here to see what we have to say about it. We've got a lot to talk about today. So again, I'm glad the internet stabilized there. It looks like we're going to be okay. Let's see, Joe, I wanted to go to my screen here real quick, and we're going to let's do this thing. Okay. So we got No Code Conf coming up. Events are a little light this week. I think a lot of people are just prepping for what's coming at No Code Conf. There's a lot of things going on next week in relationship to No Code Conf. And we're going to be doing events every day next week. So Monday, we've got a pre-conference networking event. We're going to be hanging out, doing like some speed networking and some relationship building and just some hangout time leading into the event. This is hopefully to help you meet folks before the event so that you're a little more comfortable in the breakout rooms, et cetera, as you interact with different folks at the event. So if you're interested in networking with other folks that are headed to No Code Conf, Monday's the place. I know Connor Finlayson's going to be there. We're trying to get Aaron Kornblit to jump on board. I think he's in. Obviously, all of our crew will be there. A bunch of meetup leaders and organizers will be there. So it'll be a good turnout if you're interested in networking for that. Tuesday, our stream next week is going to be a pre-No Code Conf, kind of like a speculation event. So we're going to set up some live call-in stuff. You'll be able to share your thoughts and tell us what you think you expect to see at No Code Conf, and we'll spend an hour talking about what we're excited about, what talks we're looking forward to. There's been some announcements about different speakers and things that are going on at the event, and so we'll take a look at all of that on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. We'll be streaming live from our booth. So we're one of the sponsors of No Code Conf. We'll have a small booth at the event. And so we'll be streaming from that event Wednesday and Thursday. And then Friday, we'll do a recap stream. So Friday, we'll kind of recap the event, talk about everything that happened over the last few days. And of course, those Tuesday and Friday stream will be super interactive. So we'd love to see some of you all out at that, at those streams. Oh, Joe, cookie consent videos. You want to take a swing at these? So that's all the No Code Conf stuff. Now we'll jump into, we've got 2 Finsweet updates real quick, cookie consents and attributes. Joe, do you want to jump into those? Or just maybe mention them at least.
Can you take these? Yeah, I don't know what was released.
Okay.
I didn't know they released this.
All the videos. So the cookie consent has been out for a while, but some of the videos were not there. So all of these video resources have been uploaded to YouTube now. So if you've had any issue understanding how cookie consent works, how to implement that in your projects, anything related to that documentation is now available in video format. So you can go to our YouTube channel to grab that, as well as if you go to finsweet.com/cookie consent and then click on the little video tutorials link, it'll take you to a section there where all of these videos are now available for you to explore. And then, can you type? Okay, and then attributes are launching this week or next week at No Code Conf, right? Like full stack. Joe, I know this is your
Yeah.
kind of your baby right now, so maybe you can take this one.
Yes, I've been working on attributes a lot the past few weeks. We've already released the beta. We have, I think, 10 examples, 10 solutions available to you now. We've been hearing feedback, we've been watching people implement, and now we are going to officially release it at No Code Conf. The big juicy part of this is we have completely migrated CMS library to attributes. So if you have used CMS library in the past, if you like CMS library, this is a whole new experience. Much better, much faster, much more performant, much more reliable, easier to set up. And we are working on all of that to be ready by next week. So at No Code Conf, we have a lot of announcements around this. We have a lot of education around why this attribute system is so much better than our past CMS library version. So that's
Nice.
exciting, very exciting.
Yeah, that deserves some applause, you know. And that's going to be a big deal, having all of these kind of modernized and updated, make it super easy for us to make updates. And I think this will be a lot easier for folks to use moving forward. Anybody who understands the value of the CMS library will understand the value of making that easier to use for Webflow users and more powerful. It'll allow us to make the tools a little bit more powerful. And so all of that is a big win for the Webflow community. Let's see, what else did we have? Oh yeah, tell a friend about the networking event next week. Let's share this link. The pre-event meetup in Gather. Let's see. This link here, I'm going to share this in the chat. This is a landing page for our networking event on Monday. So join us. We're going to be inside of Gather. We'll be revealing a new space that we're working on. And basically, it's going to be just like a city under construction. So we're going to build a whole no-code town. It takes a village is the term, I think. So we're going to build the digital village, the digital version of this village. It's really early in its rudimentary phases. And so it's literally just going to be a map that's under construction. As we go, we'll add new places and spaces on the map. So if you're interested, if you have a group, if you're part of a Webflow community or growing something that you would like to have listed on the map, whether you want to jump in building on our space or whether you want to have your own space that's dedicated to it, we can link to it. Gather has some cool teleport features. And so we've got a lot of plans for how we're going to kind of build out this experience on Gather. The goal is that by our next global open house in March, that we'll be launching this full-fledged space. This town will be built by then. And so between now and then, we're looking to connect with a bunch of folks in the community to figure out how we can kind of bring this real world version of The Sims to life in the Webflow and no code space. So I think that's it on the announcements. Joe, anything else that we need to cover?
I think that's
Joe? Can you hear me, Joe?
Oh, now I can. Yeah, it's the connection. I think it's giving me all the bad connection. I'm happy that everybody else, no one's complaining here. It's pushing all that bad signal right to me. But I can just understand you, so we're good.
Okay, so we're jumping into the disclaimer here. We first of all, Joe and I never made a living on Upwork, right? Neither of us have built a freelance career on Upwork, and so just know that we're coming at this from a perspective of folks who have tried to use Upwork. We've tried to hire from Upwork. We have experience with and have chatted with folks who have done work on Upwork. But again, we just wanted to be clear that we have not. And so there may be things missing from our perspective. Maybe you can help fill us in the crowd on some of that. Maybe you have some experience with Upwork. So feel free to tell us where we're wrong, to share your thoughts about, what you think may be a pro or a con of working in Upwork. And as we go through the show, we'll address some of those concerns. We'll talk about this. These shows get real interactive with the crowd. And so, feel free to share any of that before we go. And a lot of people make their living on Upwork, right? So nothing here is made to diminish that. This doesn't, nothing we're going to say is intended to be negative towards like folks who use the platform. We just, have a different approach to how we want to build a business or a freelance career. And so that's how we'll kind of approach this. Joe, do you want to take the last couple there?
Yes, it's not as easy as it looks to be successful on these platforms. Like we said, there are people that make their living on these platforms and do really well on these platforms, but this is the very small percentage of people on the platform. A lot of people that go into Upwork have okay results, not great results, some leads. So just because other people have a lot of success on these platforms doesn't mean you will be. And it's really not as easy as it looks. And then next, every platform is different. You know, we may be using the word Upwork throughout this show, but that this applies to all of these types of platforms. So do the research, see which platforms may be better or worse for certain things, and really weigh the pros and cons for yourself. You know, this, like all of our episodes, this is not us telling you not to use Upwork. This is our opinion on some of the downfalls of Upwork, some of the things that you may not want to experience in Upwork.
Yeah.
So that's the disclaimer. Do we miss
Yeah.
anything?
No, I think that's it. With that, let's get into the platform matters. And under this segment, we're just going to talk about the difference of the platform. Should you invest in working on a platform, in a platform? Is this something that, you know, like, I don't know. Let's just jump right into the notes here. So do the freelancers you trust for advice make their living on Upwork? So this is just a question we're asking, right? Like, do the people you look up to in the industry that are not like content creators around Upwork make their freelance money on this platform or on another platform? And that's where you really want to start, right? Do you see what you want to become as the end result of interacting with this platform, right? And so it depends on where you are in your career. If you need some early leads and you just want to get started immediately, maybe this is a place to start getting some of that work. But just think about who you see at the high level of, you know, freelance success, if you will. And I would venture to guess that not a lot of them, like most of them, are independent lead source generators, right? They're not necessarily building off of a platform. Let's see. And there's nothing wrong with experimenting. I don't think there's anything wrong with experimenting with this platform. We're seeing a lot of like new marketplaces open up. I don't think this conversation includes those. There's a lot of things like Connor Finlayson has his Unicorn Factory, and MakerPad has their little cohort groups. And you know, there's all sorts of communities that are building tools that can replicate some of these features you might get on an Upwork platform, which I don't think we include in this conversation here because there's too many, it's too plentiful. So this is where you kind of got to do a little bit of research on what platform, like the disclaimer that Joe was saying there, what platform you want to use, what makes sense for you, and where are you going to get the quality leads. Some of these third-party marketplaces and some of the smaller like things that are bubbling up and popping up around the web may be valuable as a lead generation source, but you know, are they going to give you all pros that you're going to get with an Upwork, right? Because we're going to go through, there is a ton of pros. You know, there's a lot of benefit to using some of these platforms, but there's also a lot of cons. And so really, no matter what platform you're looking at, it goes back to, like we always talk about, what are your goals? Where are you currently at? Have you assessed where you're at and what you're trying to do with the next step? And what technology or what platform might help you get there? And so, Joe, as it relates to Upwork or these other marketplaces that are coming up, I see a little bit of difference in value. I see some of these third-party marketplaces maybe offering a bit more value, a little higher-end projects, but you never know what's happening on the back end of those either. You know, you could be getting like leads that are going out to 30 or 50 people, and now it's, you know, just not as ideal. So yeah. I don't know. Where do you stand on these third-party platforms? Just general thoughts, you know, just rant for a little bit here, you know, wax poetic, if you will, on your thoughts on the platforms and the different variations.
Sure. As a very general idea here, I think the less focused the platform is, the more difficult it is for you to be a pro at something. So Upwork, you can find anything on Upwork. You can find copywriters, video people, editing, copywriting, anything. So how are you going to be a pro in Webflow if you're surrounded by all of this other stuff? But then we look at something like Unicorn Factory, and it's a little bit more direct. It's direct by country. It's direct by location. It does go more towards the Webflow side. Connor uses Webflow. I know that there's other things on there, but it's just a little bit closer to our industry. So this is a really, really, yeah, there we go. Nice from Connor. I hear Unicorn Factory is hands down the best freelancer marketplace in the world. Yeah, it's a bit more direct. It's set up by a person in the industry. It's not set up by a team of people that are just looking to make random connections with anybody. And I think you'll find that a lot. If you see a Webflow job board or a Webflow connection platform, I think you may have a better chance finding work there for Webflow than good work on Upwork. So this is a very generalized comment, but this is how I like to look at it. And when we get to these Upworks and the Fivers, it's just too big. There's just too much there.
I actually like that as a lens. It's like you can't be all things to everybody, and Upwork tries to be like the all things to everybody in the freelance space. They do video and web design and software development and all these little things, that I agree with Joe. I think that the tighter you get into that market that you're trying to serve, the better those referral networks are going to be. So no code would be one filter. If you find no code job boards, and then if you go one layer further and maybe there's Webflow specific job boards. But it's not even just the job board. The thing that Upwork, I think, brings is the lead flow, right? It's the steady lead flow for freelancers. So, we'll get into some of that in the next segment here. Himan Shu is saying, Upwork is awesome to get started with your career when you just want to build portfolio so you have something to show when you want to have organic leads. Sure. Again, there's a lot of paths to growth. You may have a hard time finding enough freelance gigs early on in your career to be out on your own. And so Upwork may become a place to supplement some of that. I don't see any problem with that. I think what we're talking about here is long-term, as you build your career and as you become, let's say, stable as a freelancer, do you want to be reliant on one of these platforms? And so, I agree, Himanshu. I think you could use it as a kind of the kickstart. But I also think there's other ways to do that, which we'll talk about as we go. So let's just jump right into the pros here. Let's see. Okay. So, the biggest thing, and we've already mentioned it a couple times on the pros, is the lead flow, right? One of the hardest parts about being a freelancer or being in business or being in sales is driving enough leads to run your business, right? To keep the lights on, to keep business coming in so that you can pay yourself, so that you can pay other people, so that you can pay for the tools you use and cover whatever expenses come up through the process of running your business. And so having somebody else deal with that is always like appealing to somebody who needs that, right? Like everyone needs it. If somebody else wants to do that, creators typically don't like that part of the process, right? Creatives, artists, editors, web develop, like they're not salespeople, right? They're just a different archetype, if you will, persona. And so having somebody else do that is a good thing. Same thing with like time and work tracking, right? When you work in Upwork, it kind of tracks all your time and it does this stuff for you. And so like Joe, as we're looking through some of the pros here, central communication hub for projects. You get to work with clients all over the world. It sounds like a lot of the stuff we do with Slack and with some of the, we're just going about it a different way. It can look intriguing to be on some of this platform. Payments are an escrow. You don't have to deal with clients slow paying, right? When the work is done and it gets approved, bang, the money hits your account. That's a pro. We'll talk about some of the cons related to payments too. But the platform is stable. People are always coming to Upwork to find it. Projects start fast, so you don't have like a 6-month waiting cycle while you find clients. And you're fully remote. So Joe, like on the pro side of things, like it can seem at a glance pretty enticing to come work on one of these platforms. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, absolutely. One cool thing about Upwork is the dashboard features they give you. The projects come in, you get to comment on the projects. You have a central hub for communication. And you get to meet a whole bunch of different people right there on the platform. This can be seen as a pro to somebody working there, to somebody that's using Upwork for their business. That's actually a con for me as somebody hiring on Upwork. I don't want to have to go on Upwork.com to communicate for the project. I want to be in my own environment. I want to be on Slack. I want to be email. This is much better than going through Upwork. So it could be a pro to you that you get this nice set of features, payments are all taken care of, all this. But me, I don't want that as somebody hiring. So that's a pro, but also a con. And I think that a lot of these pros that we talked about have an equal con to it. So we have the plenty of lead flow as the pro, but then the con to that is it the right lead flow? And we'll get into more of that later, but every single pro with this platform has a but. There's also a con side of this. And I think that is a universal thing across all of these types of platforms.
Yeah, and Eric Mueller brings up a good point here. I don't know about that. It's hard to find a gig on Upwork if you don't already have a portfolio. So going back to where we were talking about, hey, it may be a good just kickstart your career or to kind of get started. There's all sorts of stories because there's so much competition, and because the way the pricing structures on their work, it seems like if you want to get discovered, you have to kind of have some lower prices to get onto people's thresholds, because there's like a catch-22. If you don't have a good credibility ranking, then people don't want to hire you to do the work, and you can't get the higher rates. But to get the credibility ranking, you have to take projects, which means sometimes you have to take projects at a lower rate. And so there's kind of like, this is what they call this race to the bottom on the platform. And so while some of those leads can be great, and some of that stuff, like we were talking about in the pros, seems like it's a good, thing for freelancers, a lot of that can quickly become cons. So let's go ahead and contrast some of this, because I think we'll address some of what Eric's saying here on the cons. Joe, you want to take the first swing at those?
Sure. Your ideal client is probably not looking on Upwork. If you're in Webflow and you want a good Webflow project on Upwork, I think some of them are. I think absolutely. If you search Webflow on Upwork, you will find a lot of freelancers. You'll find some jobs available, but I don't think the best ones are going there. These really awesome SaaS websites, if you want that, or these really specific sites in a certain niche. It's really hard to get the right people coming in on these platforms. So maybe you have 100 leads for the week, but if only one of them is qualified, then you really have one lead for the week and 99 other people that are wasting your time. So that's a big con. And I'd say probably the biggest con of the whole thing, just the quality of those people coming in.
Yeah, and scrubbing through that, or figuring out which ones are worth talking to, or which ones are worth, like, now I think Upwork even requires the creator to pay to submit a proposal. And the stated goal is to kind of help eliminate the number of like just crappy proposals received. But now there's skin in the game on the creative side to go and even pitch. And so now you got to like maybe be a little bit more judicious, but you don't really know. Like you don't know if the person writing this brief is going to be a good client. It's hard to know that through these platforms. It's hard to scrub and figure out like which ones are the right ones I want to get, because there's a ton of competition. So going back to the pro side, where there's lots of leads, well, when there's lots of leads, there's lots of people competing for those leads. And so sure, if you're like a vetted pro and you were on Upwork 5 years ago when they were first starting out, and you've got 1,000 jobs under your belt and a 90 whatever % customer satisfaction rate, like maybe you can get some high quality work. But even still, they charge you to use the platform. So we have a little chart right here. It's like 20% of the first 500, then it goes down to 10%. For the next 500 to $10,000, they're taking 10%. And if you're on like the pro plan over $10,000, then that drops to 5%. And again, some people think this is a fair price to pay to have somebody else handle my lead flow. But I think what you'll find is that like if you do some of the early steps, we'll talk about this at the end, the do this instead strategy, instead of building your career on Upwork, that you can realize those gains. I was reading an article, and it's like if you're charging, let's say $100 an hour on Upwork, and they're taking 12% of that or 20% of that or whatever it is, well, maybe you could go and charge 80% hourly rate to somebody on the side and not have to deal with that, right? So maybe there's ways to again adjust and still get some of these dollars, but not have to have this middleman in control of your lead flow. Because while the money is in escrow and it's paid right at the end of the project, what happens if there's a dispute? Right now, you've got this company being an arbiter in the middle, and maybe giving somebody a refund that you don't want to authorize, or maybe they're siding on somebody else's side, and they're in control of however that mediation happens. Joe, any thoughts on any of that there?
Yeah, the lack of control is a big problem for me. That's why I never ever got into these platforms from the beginning, even when I didn't have any leads or any work. You don't have control of how you communicate. You don't have control of how you display your portfolio. You don't have control of how you display your reviews. You don't have control of everything that we're talking about here. You really are just one piece in this other system that's going on. So I don't like that. If I'm running my business, if I'm a freelancer doing my own thing, I want to feel like I have some control there. I'd love to bring up a comment from Thief here. 2 comments, actually. He followed up. I got a 5-figure project on UpWork last week. There are legit project opportunities on there. Absolutely. There will be 5-figure projects for sure. And then he follows up and says, but I can see that I'm not going to be on there in a year as my relationships are starting to get more projects. That's great. So all of these things that we're saying, they're cons, but that doesn't mean never use the platform. This almost seems like a strategy from him, that he's getting some projects now, but he can see in the future that he's going to grow out of that platform. And I think that's a lot of what the message is here, that UpWork is not the answer long-term. It's not the answer for your entire career. It's the answer for one project or 1 month or 1 year. And then you have to grow to that next level.
Yeah. And he's following up here with a third one. It was not my first project. I had a few other smaller ones before, but you sort of got to get street cred on Upwork. So just like any of these platforms, just like any community, just like any tool, you're going to get what you put into it, right? Like if you're going to go to Upwork and you're just going to fill out a profile and you think you're just going to start raking in all the big projects, like that's not how it's going to work, right? There's probably a game to play here. There's probably a system to work, right? It's a big tech company. There's probably algorithms. There's probably ways that they score things based on reputation, based on your work frequency, based on they're probably measuring like response rate and what, how often people leave reviews about your work. And like, I got to imagine they're taking all these different factors into account. And so if you are going to use Upwork, like, just like we say on everything else, you kind of have to commit to doing it. And so while we don't think it's, the right path, if you're trying to like really stand out as a freelancer, if you are going to do it, if you're going to experiment with it, well, then find ways to do that effectively, find ways to leverage it to get you to your goals, right? It can be a step towards your goals as long as you're aware of it. And the real concern is getting locked in to a thing, right? To getting super reliant on a system for leads that then may not be there down the road, right? For whatever reason may end up like, and there goes your business, right? If you're attached to something like that for the lifeline of your business, if this is where you generate all of your revenue and all of your leads and all of your projects from, and somehow that dries up, like there goes your business and you're not in control of that, which again goes back to the point Joe was saying before, where like you kind of want to be in control of some of that. You don't necessarily want to leave that all up in the air to a platform.
Or they change their algorithm. I mean, this can happen in so many ways. Let's say you're getting leads, and then you get one bad review. It's not really your fault, but the person was just terrible and they left you a bad review. Then another project was 3 out of 5 stars. And now Upwork says, okay, this person is not reliable anymore. We're going to put them on the bottom of the list. That is dangerous. If you're used to having, one project a month, and now it goes to one project every 2 months, that's a huge hit on your business. That could be the difference of making rent and not making rent. So it's dangerous, and you have no control over this.
Right. And this happens all the time, by the way. Don't think this doesn't happen, right? Think about how like when YouTube changes an SEO algorithm and everything goes out the door, right? And you got to start from scratch, or the different signals that were doing one thing now do another. And so maybe in some cockamamie scheme to put an AI behind freelance connections, you just get lost in the fold. Facebook did this with their pages and ad approach to business advertising, right? When Facebook pages first came out, there was so much rush for businesses to get their Facebook page and to spend all this money building an audience and like my page and blah, blah, whatever. And businesses thought they were using this tool to be in touch with their audience all the time. And then Facebook was like, no. Now we're going to charge you rent to reach this audience. And then they built a whole advertising platform on the back of that. And so in a shift, in like literally a blink, because it was better for Facebook's business decision, they switched the entire way the business operates. And they left all these companies that had been building their audiences socially on this platform out in the dust, right? And so now you have to pay to reach that platform. And so Upwork could easily, any of these platforms could easily do something like that. So that's the biggest like red flag in my mind. It's like, use the platform, get what you can out of it, do what you need to do to take the next step in your career, but do not become reliant on this as the sole source of any third-party platform. Do not become reliant on that as a sole source of income, of lead stream, of portfolio credibility. Because it will become easier at a certain level. Once you start building momentum on Upwork, it will become easy to just fall into their system and let them feed you the leads, right? Your score keeps going up, your satisfaction, your positive number of projects completed, all that stuff goes up, and you start sitting back and thinking like, well, shit, I got it figured out here. Until one day the leads just stop, you know? And so Penny nails it right here. Don't rely on rented real estate. I say this over and over again. You invest in appreciating assets, you rent depreciating assets. Audience and lead flow are appreciating assets. You always invest in those. You do not rent those. You can supplement with rental, like advertising at a certain level, but you always want to own the core of where those people are coming to interact with your business. Same reason we went back to branding last week, and it's about owning the website because you want to own that property. Same thing here, you know, same thing here with your lead flow. Joe.
Absolutely. I love the Facebook example because I felt that. I do remember feeling that, wow, this Facebook page is useless unless you put money into it. And that kind of big change, I mean, I love the example there. I'd love to talk about how I look at Upwork from somebody hiring. We've been talking a lot about you being on the platform as a freelancer, getting work. I'd like to flip it and talk about finding people on Upwork. Finsweet is about 6 years old. I think I've tried 5 or 6 or 7 Upwork projects. Every single one of them has been a failure. Either the person, their portfolio didn't seem to be the actual work that they were providing. There were people that didn't have good communication, didn't deliver on time, and these people had good reviews. You know, I don't like to work with people that don't have good reviews, but good review people, failure. And I have now gotten this idea in my head that Upwork, you can find good deals there. You can find lower cost work, but the quality is not there. Yeah. Now, this is a super generalized term. I am not saying that you on the platform are not good. I'm saying that if there's 100,000 people on the platform and a lot of those people aren't good, it's going to make you look not good, right? If you're surrounded and you're in a pool with a bunch of people that aren't good, that could bring you down too. Just the idea of being on the platform. So yeah. I don't look on Upwork anymore. If I'm looking for somebody, I will not search on Upwork because I've just run into too many failures with it.
Fresh movie trailers here saying never rely on one platform, just like don't rely too much in Webflow. Let's see who's saying something here earlier that I want to address. Sorry, guys, you guys make no sense. Okay, I'm not sure what you mean by that. It seems like we're walking through, some points that folks are obviously interested in. You know, the view count keeps growing here. So because this is already common sense, so both of you make no sense. Well, if it's common sense, it seems like maybe we make a little bit of sense. And then the Webflow comment here makes me think maybe we got a hater in the midst. So maybe we just won't pay too much mind there. But I agree, that's okay. Right? Like it's listen, this could be common sense for some folks, but there's plenty of people out here who are looking for advice on how to take the next step in their career. Maybe people are wrestling with Upwork right now. Maybe they're looking for ways to break out of that, and this is for them, right? So if this doesn't hit you perfectly, that's okay. Come back next week. We'll try another one. But there's somebody out there that's getting value from this, and we'll continue to do these regardless of any of that kind of thing. So do we want to maybe I do want to address this.
And
Never rely on a
also, yeah,
platform, just like the rely
I
on
would
too
love
much on
to.
Webflow. Yeah, take that one. That's
Yeah, we're specifically talking about a platform for your leads, right? When we're talking about Upwork and these freelancer platforms, we're talking about relying on a platform for your lead generation. We do not rely on Webflow for our lead generation. We are relying on Webflow to build our websites. It's a completely different platform. You can call Upwork a platform, you can call Webflow a platform, but these are two different things. We don't get our leads from Webflow experts, right? Webflow experts has their own lead thing. We don't get any of our leads from there. So yeah, this is different.
yeah. Yeah, and sometimes you can, when there's emerging technology, like to sell somebody, 10 years ago, don't go all in on WordPress would have been silly because WordPress is a great tool and look what it's become. Webflow is on the same trajectory, right? And so they're going to be a major player in the web design and development space for the foreseeable future. This is a whole different apples and oranges approach than just the Upwork stuff. So let's see. Penny had another comment I wanted to bring up here. It makes me crazy when businesses say I don't need a website. Everybody uses my Facebook page. Okay, it's going back to the Facebook stuff. Shane Grady was curious on your thoughts of alternative business structures such as DAOs for sourcing work. How disruptive will this be? Joe, have you ever considered a similar structure for Finsweet? And for those who don't know, DAOs is a crypto. It's I don't know exactly what it stands for. Decentralized something something. But it's a new type of business that's basically owned by the crowd, right? It's like owned and controlled kind of by the crowd itself. Joe, we've talked a little bit about decentralized autonomous organization is what the DAO stands for. Joe, any thoughts there? I know we've talked a little bit about crypto stuff. Anything you want to get into to answer that or no?
You know what? I don't have enough knowledge in the space to answer that question. So can you answer that, Reimar?
Yeah, I think they will be incredibly disruptive. I don't know how that plays out in like the relation to what we're talking about. I can imagine if the freelancers owned Upwork, it would be a completely different structure. You wouldn't have a lot of these issues. So I could see like a new Upwork being built on a DAO type structure or through smart contracts or through some kind of advanced technology where, again, the freelancers are direct owners and maybe even the people who are hiring, have to buy and transact inside of this network based on the rules that the freelancers set. In that context, I could see it being incredibly disruptive. I don't know how long it takes for that stuff to be built out. I think we're super early in all of this crypto stuff. And so, yeah, I don't know. That's a good question. I do think we'll see that kind of stuff. And we'll see community-driven stuff, right? Like, I think community-driven stuff will answer the problems that are coming with Upwork, right? Like the new platforms that are coming behind this stuff will probably be built because freelancers got tired of working on Upwork or TopTal or, whatever, Guru, any of these other platforms. And they're like, let's start our own thing. And they'll build something cool and other freelancers will come and that'll grow. And sure, I really do think we'll see a plethora of that. I think we're seeing the experimentation of some of that right now, right? These other little niche platforms, the little no code only job boards, little Webflow only job boards, like those things could evolve eventually. We even talk internally about figuring out a way with our FN certified, with our programming, with the stuff that we're building, could we build a structure where like we start driving leads, like the leads that we can't handle or the leads that, for some reason don't meet our criteria, but are still high quality leads. Can we build a network to distribute some of those leads to? That could become a freelancer marketplace, again, specific for Webflow that grows over time. I could see hundreds, if not thousands of Webflow developers having access to a job board like that. It is something we've talked about. It's not something we're actively like moving on right now. There's a lot of kind of pokers in the fire, what do they call that? Irons in the fire right now that we are working on. But yeah, I don't know. This whole digital world is up in the air for all sorts of innovation. And I'll be excited to see how that plays out for freelancer marketplaces, job leads, all this stuff over the next few years.
And one of the reasons why we haven't gone into this fully, why we haven't created this little network of giving projects to people is because it's hard. This is not an easy thing to do. Getting a qualified lead in, making sure that that person is qualified and not going to waste other people's time, making sure that somebody else on the receiving end is qualified to work on this. These are all very difficult things to do. And I'd like to think that Upwork doesn't do the best job at it. Finding, I have this requirement and I'm going to be paired with this type of person that does great work in this. So yeah, this is hard. This is why we have not done this. We get a lot of leads and we can't take all of them. But how do we have a system to get those to the right people?
Right. Yeah, it takes some time to figure
Great
out.
comment from Caleb here.
Oh, Caleb. Let's see if I can find it.
Caleb, I'd recommend having a solid portfolio website that you can link to on your Upwork profile. This helps display your work and also works as a better lead gen tool. Absolutely. One of the big problems I have with Upwork is how it displays the portfolio for our type of industry. Maybe if you're in copywriting or, I don't know, video editing or SEO or something like that, that's appropriate. But we're in a very visual space. We need to see more than just a bad screenshot of a website that you made. We need to see a real portfolio. So yeah, if you are on Upwork and you are, getting leads from there, really try to beef up that portfolio. Don't just have a few random sites, and if somebody leaves you a review, post that on the page. Get your personal portfolio in there and really let people see your quality and who you are as a person.
Yeah. And that's the step, because we'll jump into scams to avoid here. That's the step. We'll talk next about, do this instead. But for sure, you should have a portfolio site no matter what. If you're in the web space and you're doing things and you want to hire people online, it actually just occurred to me that you may want to use an Upwork profile for SEO stuff, because maybe as people search, maybe because of the amount of traffic that they do, that's a high rank. You can get like a, some kind of link back, or that becomes like a, a search result back for some kind of thing or under your name. I don't know. But then maybe if they get to that profile and they don't see a lot of completed sites or a lot of, like a high star rating or something, maybe then that hurts you. And so like there's pros and cons and, things to kind of weigh at every step of this. And I don't know how you say this. Sameh has saying, I have not been paid 3 times in a row for the work already done. I'm assuming he means on Upwork. The last time the payment went through, the client canceled it through the bank and I did not receive the money. And this is a perfect segue into the scams to avoid. I don't know what happened here. I don't know the logistics of this thing, but this goes back to having somebody in between you, the client, and your money, right? Like, you just don't want this, right? Like, you want to be in charge of that. And while sometimes that creates hurdles with you having to chase a client down to get paid, or maybe somebody's slow paying, or, the risk of not getting paid is viable on every level. But there's a couple real specific scams that are happening on Upwork that if you are going to experiment with them a little bit, you should pay attention to. And so let me run through those real quick, because people asking for free or sample work, right? Like, let's say they want to see a test project ahead of hiring you for an actual project. And so maybe in some way they communicate with you, or they give you the scope of this test project. You do the test project hoping that they're going to hire you for the next one because you did it well, and then you never hear from them again, right? And so this is a very common scam on Upwork. Asking to move communication outside of the platform, this should be a red flag at all. And this goes back to, this could be a pro or a con for you. Having the centralized communication, as Joe was saying, is not always great for the business, because the business doesn't want to have to remember to log into Upwork and see the messages. I know a couple times I've tried to hire someone. I just forget. I forget that it's there, and then I don't look at my email, and then, and the communication isn't as seamless. So it's easy to see why somebody would want to ask you to communicate off of Upwork, right? For their convenience or to fit into whatever they're comfortable with. But this can also be a red flag because, again, it takes you out of the protection of their communication. And so just this confusion, right? Like, I don't know what the right move is there, but if anybody's trying to get you to communicate off of Upwork, they're either trying to hire you separately, right? They're trying to send you a message to say, hey, fuck Upwork, come work for us, for like a real rate. Or maybe they're trying to get you to do something for them for free, or get that free sample work that we mentioned before. And then anytime anybody asks for access, to your platform or credentials, those could be times they're trying to scam you instead. So let's jump into what to do instead. Let's close out with what folks should be doing, Joe, instead of Upwork. Let's go through and kind of address those concerns. What should they be doing?
Sure. Well, let's reiterate Using platforms like Upwork as your launch pad. So you can be on Upwork, make sure that you have it in mind as something temporary. What do you do instead? You get closer to the industry that you're trying to work in. We talked about how Upwork has so many different things going on, and you're in a sea of people that of all different types of industries. Get closer to the Webflow community. Work hard to be part of the experts. Work hard to start to engage with the community. Work hard to comment on Facebook posts that people are asking jobs from. I've actually heard a lot of people get good leads just from the Facebook group. There are a few posts in the Facebook group that may not look good, but I do know there are good ones. And that's so close to what you're trying to do, right? You want to build a Webflow site. You're in the Webflow Facebook group. Someone posts about Webflow and you can go and help them live. And when you help them, they're going to say, great, help me again. And I'm going to pay you and pay you and pay you. And now you have a client. So start to make the transition. I think that's what I would start to do as somebody on Upwork. Get closer to that industry.
Yeah. Yeah. And it can be tempting, again, if you're starting out and you don't have a lot of sales experience, you don't have a lot of business experience, you don't have much of a network to rely on, because this is where the leads come from, right? When we said earlier that your ideal client is not looking on Upwork, well, where are they looking? They probably reach out and they ask for a referral, right? They phone somebody that has a nice website that they know, and they're like, who built your website? Or it's via email or whatever. And so figure out how to build your network so that you can get in front of those referrals, because people are always asking for referrals, especially when it comes to web design. Web design is one of those things that, again, the portfolio speaks for itself, but in addition to the portfolio, you want other people who have successfully hired and done the project to kind of vouch for you, right? And so what can you do to build your professional network? And as Joe was alluding to, getting involved in the community, starting your own community. We talk about this all the time, starting a meetup. You cannot build more value than starting a meetup and kind of cornering the local market on a specific topic, specifically something like Webflow or no code or web apps or whatever it is you're trying to do. Start that local little tinkerer meetup, the online maker meetup, the no code meetup, whatever it is, and watch that over the course of 6 months to a year. You don't become the go-to person in a number of ways to either teach people. Like, businesses will come to you. You'll find ways to collaborate with a school or a large organization or some big nonprofit. And next thing you know, these exposure opportunities will start to grow. And through those like connections in the community, you can then start building that referral network. You can start finding higher quality leads, and people will just start taking you more seriously in general, right? Because they think, like, who starts a Webflow meetup unless they know some shit about Webflow, right? And so now this doesn't mean you can just start a meetup and it's just going to happen. You have to, host good events. You have to offer value. You have to actually be the expert. But if you do that over time, this will expand. This will grow. And so we talk about this all the time. How to drive consistent leads is to find the people who need your services and get them, to start thinking like, well, what's the next logical step? It's to hire Joe to build a website, right? It's to hire so-and-so, whatever it is. And so anything you can do to build that network, I think a lot of people, and the problem here is the same folks that are interested in maybe getting the easy leads from Upwork are the ones that will likely have a hard time doing this outreach, right? Maybe tend to be more introvert. They tend to be less extroverted, right? It's easy for someone who's extroverted or who's real comfortable in crowd settings to go do community stuff and to interact and build that persona, but maybe, you're not that person. So challenge yourself, right? You got to step out of that comfort zone, and you got to do this for a while until you can build that lead source. And so I think, as a general rule, you just don't want to have, and we've said this a number of times, anybody else controlling that income stream or lead source, right? You just don't want anybody else on control that spigot, because they can just turn that spigot off or even just redirect some of it towards theirs, right? Like, let's say, again, on the spigot analogy, if they're losing water pressure downstream, well, they're going to cut your spigot off so that the upstream, the water pressure increases. And so if that is the flow of money, at some level, the business decision for this platform could, they could make decisions that don't really impact you, or they impact you, but that aren't taking the way you work into consideration, so
Totally.
Yeah, Joe, any final thoughts there on the what to do instead? I feel like every other episode we've done is what to do
Yeah.
instead.
Let's bring up a comment from Felix Means. I keep hearing about this Facebook group. Should I create a Facebook account just to join? Feeling FOMO right now. So, Felix, it doesn't have to be the Facebook group. It can happen in Twitter. I spoke with someone a few weeks ago, and they said they get most of their projects on Twitter, which was like even crazy for me to hear at the time. But they interact so much on Twitter, they find people. So, Felix, it doesn't have to be the Facebook group.
Yeah.
This comment is more about being in touch with the community, being as close as possible as you can to this industry that you want to hire you.
Yeah.
So yeah,
And
absolutely.
and the community's huge. So like the Facebook group
Yeah.
is a part of the community. On Twitter, you'll find a different part of the community, and often those two don't intersect because a lot of Facebook folks are on Facebook, a lot of Twitter folks are on Twitter, and often those streams don't correlate. But YouTube is another platform, and there's lots of people, as Pixel Geek says here, start a Webflow YouTube channel and teach what you know. Bonus points for non-English channels. So much opportunity. Yeah, 100%. I got on Joe's radar with a website called No Code Video. Started playing around with videos and started exploring with different things in the community. Again, just experimenting with ways to provide value back. I really do think if you're interested in this, if you've been watching this episode, go to growth.finsweet.com and look back through the other episodes. Because I said it jokingly, but I really do think almost every other episode we've done is kind of the continuation to this episode of the do this instead, right? Because we talk about how to generate more leads, how to build a portfolio that stands out, how to sell yourself, how to sell Webflow, all these different things we've kind of covered. And so if you're looking for a little bit more, if you're watching this episode either now or in the future, and you're just like, I want more on what I should be doing instead of relying on UpWork, go over to that growth.finsweet.com website and explore some of the other episodes, because we've done just as detailed conversations like this on some of those other topics. Let's see.
Would love to bring a comment up from Gabriel.
Yeah.
Gabriel asks, on having someone build a project before they get hired, I've heard this happen for those looking to join an agency. Would this be a red flag? So this is doing free work, doing test projects for an agency to qualify you for the agency. Gabriel, this is a tricky one, and I'll tell you why. There are a lot of dishonest people here that just want you to do a quick free project, and they probably have no intention of hiring you. When we do this at Finsweet, there's two things that I require for this process. Number one, that it's not a revenue earning project. I will never put somebody on a full test project if it's revenue earning. So if they're doing a test project, it's something internal or something that we may not ever release, or just something really to test the skills. So if they're like, hey, work on this client project as a test, I'd say maybe a red flag, but it could also be a green flag. I don't know. Another thing is when somebody does not get on the team, if they did a test and they do not get on the team, I tell them why. I will do a Loom video or a write-up to say, hey, you are not going to be on our team because of this issue, this overflow issue, this line spacing issue, and this, and this. You should work on these things, come back next year. Something like that. So, Gabriel, there is no answer to this question. I guess it really comes down to how you feel about that person, the person giving you the project. I would get on a phone call with somebody and try to gauge how honest they feel when you talk to them. If it's just by text, just by communication, typing, you may not be able to get that connection with the person to see if they're being honest.
Yeah. Well, and test
either
projects,
way, good practice. So,
and they're very common.
If you're starting out, it could just be good.
Yeah. Test projects are very common when you're interviewing for a company, and usually they're just set up to show off a certain skill or to validate a specific, proficiency. And yeah, I think it all just depends on what the role is, how big the project is, right? If it's a small couple $100 project, $1,000 project, and they want you to do half of that work for free, as a test, but if it's, $50,000 project or a $10,000 project and they want you to spend a couple hours showing that you know what you're doing or doing a thing, maybe that's, something you have to do or deal with, or at least worry think about whether it's something you want to do in the process of potentially landing that job. And so this isn't just something, that can be a carte blanche, addressed, I think.
Yeah. Any other questions?
Let's see. This is also me. Let's see. It's also me. I found all my clients on Twitter so far, and I don't even use it that much. I just see someone that needs help and DM them. Be proactive. Again, this is a great way. And when somebody needs help in that moment, there's not a better time to approach somebody, because, let's say you're a tow truck driver and you're out in the middle of a desert and you run up on a car that is in need of service. That car doesn't have a whole lot of options in that moment. They need a tow into town, or they need a refueling or something like that. And so it makes you a higher likelihood of conversion in that moment. So when someone comes to you in need, when someone comes to you for a solution, this is a great way, not just to pitch your services, but to really help solve a problem. And if you really help people solve problems, that will eventually lead you to more deals. It may not be that exact same deal. It may not literally be that person buying from you. But if you continuously set out with the intent of solving problems and helping folks, this will eventually come back and help you grow and reward you in some way, right? You just have to find a way to leverage this. And then you have to make sure, like we talked about, saying no, that you don't just get, used all the time for this type of free work.
I'd love to point out a change that we're seeing at Finsweet with the Webflow community as a whole. And that change is seeing more companies as users. This was not the case when we started Webflow 6 years ago. 6 years ago, if you were in the Webflow community, you were a web developer. You were somebody making their life in websites, or did it on the side or something like that. Now, for probably the past year or so, we've seen a lot of people come to us as users working for other companies. So, hey, we built these 6 pages in Webflow. We did it internally, and we don't really know how to get to the next level. It's a little bit messy. It's hard to manage. Can you come in and help us? And the person that built it is part of the community. Maybe they're not coming to our live show every week, or they're not active on Twitter, but they are in the community. They'll see your post. They will post. The Facebook group and Twitter, we see a lot more posts of people saying, hey, I'm a user. I need some help here. So this is becoming more and more frequent. And I think this is going to be it's just going to continue growing as Webflow grows as a platform. We get a lot of people coming to Finsweet as companies saying that they're fans of Finsweet. They have a team of 2 people that do their marketing. They know a little bit of Webflow, and they've been following Finsweet for 2 years. And now they're ready to reach out and come work with us. So this YouTube stuff, the content, the Twitter, the Facebook, just getting close to this community has major long-term benefits, especially as Webflow is growing as a platform.
Yeah, and there's nobody better. As an example here, shout out to Nelson, the Pixel Geek. That is why I created my YouTube channel, to help people at scale. Because at a certain level, if you're doing the one-on-one help stuff and you start seeing the same question asked over and over, it makes sense to figure out how can I, replicate this help I'm giving at scale, which is what Nelson Pixel Geek is saying here, is that, with the media, you can reach more people than you can one-on-one. And again, as long as you're offering value back to the community, you don't need to be viral. I've talked about this a number of times, right? You don't need to reach 10,000 people per video in order for the videos to be successful. You can get a couple hundred views. You can get 50 views. You can get 80 views on a video, and it may reach the person who needs the information. And again, as long as you're helping and providing value, and you seem like a reasonably competent person that can help this, the person who needs help do what they need to do, well, then you're in, right? You got a chance to be in at least. You can get a chance to start a conversation with this person, or maybe they reach out for a personalized question, and now, they ask you, well, how much would it cost for you to build it for us? And so these things always lead to deals and to opportunities in the community, right? The more you do of this, the more you connect with other folks, and it just trickles. It just happens. It takes time, but it does happen.
Yeah, it takes Time, absolutely. So this is not a, I'm going to leave Upwork, I'm going to do this stuff, and now my leads come from somewhere else. It's an ongoing process. Just like the idea of coming to Upwork and leaving Upwork. Maybe you're on Upwork now. You could start this community stuff. You could start migrating where your leads come from. You could start getting those other sources in. So be patient. Be patient with coming and going to Upwork. Be patient with getting these leads from these more community efforts.
Yeah. Yeah. And be patient with all of it. Like, be patient with yourself. That's the thing I struggle with the most. Like, I am somebody who has high expectations for the work that I do and the things that I do in general, just in life, period. And so, like, I'm often impatient with myself because I maybe don't learn something as quickly as I should, or because I see other people doing things that I'm like, oh, I should be doing that, you know? And so, like, yeah, be patient with yourself and be patient with your progress, right? We talk about all the time, trying not to compare yourself to others and trying to be, better the next day, right? Be better tomorrow at something that, you were struggling with today. And that's constant improvement, the slow iterations, that slow progress will help you get to whatever that next level is.
Great comment from Bro Trippin. Making a YouTube tutorial with less than 100 views got me a full-time job.
Dang.
Awesome. That is great. Finsweet started to become popular from videos, and our videos were sometimes less than 100 views, sometimes 100 to 200 views, but people knew our videos. So you don't need a lot. We have like really talented people who have been here since the beginning, like Nelson, who have a lot of views. You don't need to be that now. You can grow into that. So just start doing it. So great to hear that, Bro Trippin. I appreciate sharing that.
Well, and just because a video has 100 views on it right now doesn't mean that in a year it won't have 10,000 views, right? Sometimes it takes effort for this stuff to stack, right? You may just be starting out and maybe you've only got 4 or 5 videos on there and maybe those have low views, but then your 6th video or your 8th video or your 10th video gets some traction and it goes viral, or it gets a little bit of, somebody retweets it and it gets a little sticky. And then the next time it gets a little bit more. And as those people find it, they come back and they explore the rest of your content. And now they're interacting with these other videos that maybe are weeks or months old, and those views count. They stack, they grow, and eventually, like we release some of these cookie consent videos, and they don't have 10,000 views on them immediately when we publish them, but I guarantee you, over the course of the next 6 months, 8 months, a year, they will. They'll have thousands and thousands of views on them as they go, as people come to learn about these resources and they look for the video documentation. So again, don't just think that the impact has to be immediate. Right? Going back to be patient. A lot of the things that we're talking about here is like planting the seeds and watering and nurturing your garden and hoping that as the stuff grows, you'll be able to eat from this garden on a regular basis.
Nice.
Let's see. Anyone still get leads via search engines, Google? Yeah, tons.
Yeah, absolutely. And a great, I think the best way to bump up your SEO is through videos. YouTube is Google. Google is YouTube. They put YouTube at the top of the search results. So if you have a video about how to do something and somebody searches for that, you could be the first result. That's crazy, right? One video could be the first result in Google. So just so much potential there. Absolutely. We get a lot from search in Google.
Yeah. Yeah. And Pete's saying here, I'm wrapping up a client project right now and working on a website that's a service to an Instagram community that I'm part of. I'm looking into how I can leverage these projects to keep working. Yeah. Anytime you can find a way to take your current project or your next project and leverage that into another, like a follow-on project, those are always, like good opportunities to figure out. He does follow up here saying, don't have a portfolio site yet. I need that ASAP. There you go. You get 1 or 2 sites, build you a little something, something. And, yeah, don't be scared to show your personality on all this stuff. We talk about this regularly. Show your personality, start a little blog. Again, start a little podcast, start interviewing folks. When I first started this game, I went to No Code Conf, right? And I was walking around the whole conference. I was shooting some stuff and videos and blah, blah, blah. And then what I started doing when I got back was I reached out to everybody that I met at the conference. And I was like, hey, I'm about to start this No Code podcast. Would you mind doing an interview? And nobody said no, right? Nobody said no because it was a genuine ask. And I thought I was going to start this, big podcast in the space, whatever, blah, blah, blah. But what those conversations ended up turning into was building relationships with these folks that I just met online. And so some of the podcasts got published. That's actually the first real conversation I had with Joe was part of that process. But I had conversations with tons of people. I had conversations with Nelson, Lacey Kessler, Tom Osman, all of these folks, Mason Poe at Edgar Allan, like all of these different folks that are doing things in the community now. And it all started from this request. And the podcast never really panned out, but it got me to the next step, right? And so I think, just finding ways to consistently, again, water those seeds and nurture those connections. This is why the community is so important. I think that's what makes this whole space so special. And, we can't say enough how important it is to kind of just get out there and, do some of that. It's easy to sit on the sidelines and wonder why you're not a part of it, but jump out and see what's out there,
That was a nice long do this instead section.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mixed with the QA.
Yeah, it was good. It was good.
Absolutely.
I will remind everyone the likes do help us. Let's see, there's 56 of you on there. If you haven't liked the video, we'd appreciate that. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. I had something clever to say about the subscription thing, but I completely forget now, and I don't see it in my notes. I forget what it was. There was something about why people needed to subscribe. It might be for the content next week. We're going to experiment with some long form live stream content next week as part of the booth. And so we're going to be like replaying some highlights. We've got hundreds of clips from these shows, little excerpts, segments that are valuable. We're going to have product content, all sorts of different things. We're going to experiment with some long form broadcasting that we'll then interrupt and interact with, but it's going to be during our booth. So technically this will be our no code conf booth, just like if we were at the conference and we were all in a big hall somewhere and you might come stop by our booth. We're inviting everyone to come and stop by our virtual booth at No Code Conf. If you are not already registered for the event, I definitely think it's worth doing. I think the online event is free, so there's no cost for anybody. Over 9,000 registered attendees at this point. So over 9,000 people have signed up for the conference. So it's going to be a big event. The speed building challenges, I think, are going to be a blast to watch. Folks from this community, Claudia Cafeo is speaking. Joe is speaking. Connor Finlayson, Aaron Kornblit is speaking. A lot of our favorites from the community are going to be part of this. And so next week is just going to be a lot of fun. It's a great opportunity to break into the community. Come to our networking event on the 15th, and gather. I think the link is,
Totally.
I think the link's in the comments there. We'll reshare it again before the end of the show. But yeah, find a way to plug in. Joe, any thoughts? Closing thoughts?
Yeah, be on the, for next week. Like Ramar said, we have a lot to announce. Be on the lookout for our attributes announcement. If you're working on a website right now that has filtering, you're going to want to use this. Our new attribute CMS filter works like no other filter system in Webflow today. It is amazing. So you want to hear this announcement. We will be giving it at No Code Conf. Come to our booth. We're waiting for you.
Yeah. I mentioned the booth, but forgot that what we're doing at the booth. We're going to be reviewing all sorts of different products. So the attributes is our big launch. We've gotten sneak peeks at all this stuff. Filtering is about to become way easier in Webflow. Very easy to install and implement. And as these attribute features roll out through all the different features from the library, it's going to be super powerful. So again, don't miss us next week. Monday, we got our event. Tuesday, we'll be here with a preview stream, kind of speculating. If you have thoughts, if you want to call in, we're going to have like a call-in number. So we're going to do like old school radio show where instead of just commenting, if anybody wants to jump on, you can literally jump on the stream with us. I don't know that we'll have video, but we will have audio for that. Maybe we'll have video. We'll see. And just expect us to experiment quite a bit. Wednesday, Thursday are the stream booth. So we'll be doing the announcements and the different stuff related to attributes and the conference right there. We'll have some watch parties and gather. So if you're interested in hanging out with us, our gather space is going to be open all next week, where we'll kind of be hanging out, and we'll obviously be in Hopin because that's where the Webflow conference is going to take place. But we'll be in Gather, in between the talks, maybe watching some of the talks, supporting the different folks in the community. So yeah, lots of fun going to be had next week. So subscribe on YouTube, keep up with us. Go to growth.finsweet.com and sign up for emails there. We'll also be sending out emails about some of this stuff. So yeah, gonna be a lot of fun. And I think that's all we got for today. Anything else we need to address? Any other comments here that came in?
I think
we thought we were gonna. Gabriel is saying, really glad the internet started working again. Yeah, that's so wild to me. Like, I don't know if maybe it was just a spike, performance spike or something. And well, that's all we got. That's another episode 42. We're 10 away from 52, which is a full year of episodes. Gonna get excited about episode 52 and I think 100. 100 is kind of my goal. When we hit 100, I can't wait to see where we are as a community, where the projects are, where Finsweet is, where Webflow is. 100's an exciting goal.
I'd like to do 104.
104?
52.
2 full years.
We'll have a party. We'll have a 100 party.
It's just not as fun as the century, the 100 episodes a lot. And there's weeks that we skipped in there, so it'll probably be a full 2 years. But anyway, thanks everyone for hanging with us. This has been a blast. We always enjoy these streams on Tuesdays. Come hang out with us next week. Probably not going to do a Gather hangout. Just with everything going on next week, we probably won't do a Gather hangout this Thursday. I don't know. I say that and then Thursday comes and we're like, hey, what are we doing? So who knows?
Out for an email.
Keep out. Just check out for an email. Go to growth.finsweet.com and subscribe for email updates there. Other than that, let's F and grow. See you guys next week.